Hello and welcome to the Jason Edwards Show. I'm your host, Jason Edwards, of course, and I have a great guest today, somebody that I've really been looking forward to getting into the studio, and luckily had some free time today, so decided to come in. The incredible actor, Jeremy Sande. How are you, sir?
Doing good, sir. Doing good.
So I'm going to pull up some comments on my phone in a little bit, but I want to just introduce you to the world that doesn't know you and talk about kind of your career in the acting industry, the filmmaking industry, and also just talk about some successful stories that you've had along the way. So with that being said, just starting out, I know you grew up in Mississippi, right?
Meridian, Mississippi, yeah.
Okay. And did you start out always wanting to be an actor, or did you kind of find that along the way?
I was always the class clown, as a young kid, and then when I got to high school, that was when they kind of started offering theater programs and stuff like that. And I was 16 years old, and a friend of mine went to the community theater to audition for Cinderella, and it was kind of a dare. They were like, "You won't get up there and audition for Prince Charming." Yes, I will. And so I did, and I got home. They had called my mom's house and were like, "Hey, we want to give you the role." And so that was the first time I ever got on stage, and it was hooked ever since.
Was it just instantly like, this is...
Yeah, this is what I'm supposed to do. Now, how to make a living?
Yeah, that was way down the road. And I've heard other interviews of you about that particular moment where you said, and it stuck out to me, that somebody in your life, maybe, I don't know if it was the director or somebody, came up to you because you weren't really taking it seriously at the beginning of it. And how did that shift? You see them all the time. You have talented individuals that, since they're talented, they kind of don't have the work ethic that they should. And so in college, we had SETC, was Southeastern Theater Conference, and we were taking a show to competition, and I was the lead and debonair, and I walk in, and it's probably 2 weeks before competition, and I wasn't off book, and it was just kind of whatever, I'll get this. And Elliott Street, my college professor, took me out back and was basically like, "If you don't learn your lines, cut your ass." And I'm like, all right. And I went home, and next day I was off book, and I've just tried to have that work ethic, because it is, especially once you get up into the film industry and you are working, it's real frustrating when you have a group of professionals in whichever aspect, whether it's crew or talent or set design, whoever. You have a group of people that are busting their butt to meet a deadline and make a good product, and you have somebody that's got a lackluster work ethic comes in. It doesn't mesh well. Got it. And then did you go from there and do multiple theater productions before you started getting into film? Or?
Oh yeah, I tried and failed and tried and failed and tried and failed a couple of times as a stage actor. And it was one of those things, like I said, being from a small town in Meridian, Mississippi, I didn't really know how to transition from community theater, college theater, fun, possibly pay your bills with this. That was a huge chasm, Yeah. And probably about 6 years ago, my best friend, Tyler Etheridge, he hit me up and was like, "Hey man, there's this production company that's coming to Philadelphia, and they're doing a workshop on how to get into film." All right, that sounds cool. And so we went to that, and actually met my fiance there, unbeknownst to me. That was not part of the plan; it just kind of happened.
At the workshop.
At the workshop, okay. Yeah. And so we met all these people that were in the industry, and then we kind of threw darts around a little bit and doing freebies here and student films and answering stuff on Craigslist. And that was when I realized that this was a non-linear career path. If you want to be a doctor, you go to school, you go to med school, you get your residency, you do this, I want to be in film. How good of a cup of coffee can you make? Because that might be able to get you a job. You just never know how your career is going to grow by what opportunities you are presented with and the ones you take.
Good. Yeah, I find that too. I had a little bit
a similar path with theater, but then took a long break because I had to figure out how to pay bills moving out to LA. So how do you go from that to, and then you did the workshop? How did that land a role for you? Or did it out of that? Or
Yeah, no, absolutely. So at that workshop, they taught us about headshots. They taught us about, this is what your resume should be. And a resume then was like, I can walk and say things. And so, yeah, it was just a process of like, there was this website called Southern Casting Call, and so they would, people coming and doing their indie projects or student films or whatever, they would basically put advertisements, and so we did a couple of those and a couple of Tulane student films, just fighting to get that reel, so you can show people like, this is what I can do, and so after about we'll say 2 years or so. Yeah, in about 2 years, I actually finally got a bite on a feature. It's called Hayride. The first one is available, I think, on Amazon. The second one's on Redbox. Group of friends of mine down in Mobile. We're all learning the process, you know. But it was super cool on one fact, because Richard Tyson, who's an actor, he was the stepdad in Kindergarten Cop.
Oh, yeah.
He was at the workshop that I went to get all this information. Flash forward years later, I'm playing a son in this low-budget horror film. And so it was like, that was my first little molehill of accomplishment, where it's like, I remember taking lessons from this guy, and now I'm working with him. All right, so we're growing. And so then that real footage turned into this. That real footage turns into that. Next thing you know, I booked a little day player on Nashville. And so now you're validated by a network television show. Mm-hmm. Now it's like on the resume, it's like it's something of clout, where you're like, I was on Nashville, and more classes, more this, more that. You start taking out the bad stuff in your reel and putting in the new stuff in here,
or the fake stuff.
Yeah, or the fake, or the stuff that you're like, you got a camera, I got a script, we can write it. And so you keep like splicing and dicing and moving around, and it's now I've got a reel that I don't hesitate to show people. You got any work? Yeah. Bam. I'm super proud of this, because it is like a testament of almost a decade now of hard work, and it's just one of those, like, I just take every opportunity I can. I work crew, I work talent. I've gone into shows as talent and picked up a crew job. I've gone into shows as crew and gotten talent. So it's one of those, like, it's very discouraging. Not discouraging for me, but it's discouraging to hear people go like, well, I just can't blank. And it's like, no, if you want something bad enough, and especially in this industry, you'll figure out a way to make it happen. Right. And you hear stories of like that from the up and ups all the time. So
you do the Hayride movie, that's kind of the break, and then when you feel, even though that was a legitimate project, but you feel legitimized once you get that network thing on Nashville. The day player, for everybody who doesn't know, is when you've just worked one day, and then your kind of character comes in. They may have a lot of dialogue, they may have one word, but regardless, they're working for that one day, and then they're done with the show, potentially.
But it's just the fact that was a network series. It's a big difference between a multi-million-dollar box office feature and a feature that Tulane students are shooting. Right. Yeah, they're both features, but it's like, this is merit, And
when you get that first role, and when you're on that set, is it like you're like, now?
And even for it to be like Hayride, for what it was, I think their total budget was like $60,000, something like that, which is nothing now, like knowing what we know now. But at the time, I was talent. I got my own little chair. I think they were like fold-out chairs, but I had my own chair. You're just like, exactly. This is the life. This is what it is.
Just if you have your own place to sit on
bro, you're good.
You don't have to like scrap together, put a couple apple boxes.
So the men's restroom is around there. We've got some apple boxes. Just stay away from the third toilet. It's backflows.
So you go from there, and then I know that you did some more day player parts. You started to progress through. After that Nashville thing, what were some of the other bigger wins that you felt really excited about?
Rectify. Okay. I got to do a day player on Rectify. And you said it a minute ago. Day player is not necessarily a bad thing. Like Nashville, I came in, I had like 4 lines or something like that. But Rectify came along, and even though I was a day player, it's like a great scene. Mm-hmm. And I've actually had a person recognize me in real life from that scene. That's one of those moments you're like, wait, what?
Yeah.
You watched? Okay, all right, that's cool. But so, I got to work with Ray McKinnon, Daniel, not Daniel, so Aiden Young, that's an actor's name on Rectify. Super cool show. Buddy of mine, JD Evermore, he plays the sheriff, and so that was another one of those, like, I came in here and done that. Got that footage, that moves on. And it's like every job that you get is your next stepping stone for the next big one you want. And so it's, if they see that you can do these little day players, it's like any of your casting directors. I remember when Ryan Glorioso, my first thing that I ever came in for him was, I can't remember what it was called, but it ended up being The Campaign. It was the Will Ferrell
and I know what you're talking about.
Zach Galifianakis.
Yes,
He was, my first audition for him was for like Olive Garden waiter, and it was something about waiting on them, and I guess he was like rude or something. Anyways, he didn't know who I was. He was like, next, coming in, nice guy, but there was no rapport. There was no, I was a guy reading some lines. And so as you come in and you continue to do good work, I noticed that he would give me more auditions on those one lines. And it's like, okay, well, he's capable of doing that. Well, flash forward years down the road, it's nothing if I get 11 pages from Ryan because I've proven that I can do this consistently. And it's you have to look at your career. Yeah, as actors, we all want an Oscar. But using that as a goal just from here to there, it's an impossible gap to cross. So what you do is you just break it down in these little things. And it's like difference between being on Hayride. I got that same feeling when I walked on set at Deepwater Horizon. Completely different gambit, but it was like looking at the enormous set that I'm walking on, some of the names that I'm about to work with, it was just kind of, how did I? What? Okay. But had I looked at it like, how do I get on that set? I would have never gotten an answer.
Right. Yeah, and so that's a good transition because I wanted to mention that story because you talked about how you'd been getting little one page or a couple lines or one word sometimes and progressing now. You said it's nothing to get 11 pages, but tell the story of how you got the role on Deepwater Horizon.
Well, to be honest, I don't really know. No, it was one of those, once again, casting directors, they send out things, and my old theater coach, Elliot, he was back in Hollywood where you had to drive in and go wait in line and sit in front of the casting director. Now we have it so easy that literally, hey, can you throw something on tape for me by 2? Yeah, sure. You go back in your room, we tape this thing. I never leave my house. I sit my tape off. And so I've booked things from tape. I've booked some things from live and going in. And I always my rule of thumb with a casting director is if I haven't booked with you, I'd much rather go in. Because I would rather meet you and us kind of have this thing than just a face on a screen. But so this casting director that was cast in Deepwater, I'd never booked with. Then I got a tape, and I for some reason I just couldn't go in. So it's like, all right, well, I'll tape it. And it was for Roughneck number 2, something along that. And they gave us those Jerry sides where it's like literally everybody auditions with the same thing. Right. And so I did the read. 2 months go by, nothing, and once you get in, you realize that the best way you can stay remotely sane is just do the audition and walk away from it. Don't.
It's a big challenge.
Very hard, very hard, but you try. And so I had written that one off, and my agent, she calls me up one morning. She's like, "Hey, what are you doing?" Taking Cher to go. I think she was getting her wisdom teeth pulled, and she's like, "Call me when you get free. Important." Okay.
It's weird.
All right, we'll do it. So I walk out and I call Angie up, and she's like, "Hey, so Deepwater wants you for 6 weeks." 6 weeks? It was one line. It was a one-line run. I don't understand this, but okay. Yeah, yep, available. And so they go, send my deal memo out. They come back, and when my deal memo comes through, I have a name on it. And I'm like, okay, well, that's not Roughneck number 2. And one of my buddies that's a director says, "Man, you just Google it. What's the guy's name?" And so we type it in, Adam Wisey, Deepwater Horizon, and that's when it hits me that I'm playing one of the 11 guys. And I don't know how I got that, but that was incredible. But on the flip side, I hear people, our friends, that are like, "Oh, it's just a one-liner. I'm not even going to do it."
Right.
biggest role of my career to date. Had I said, "Oh, it's just a one-liner, I don't want to mess with it," I'd have missed out on that whole opportunity.
Yeah, and it was, you said it was a casting director that you hadn't booked with yet.
I hadn't booked with.
You're not going to turn down anything, but I see a lot of people that do that in the industry, and I'm guilty of it too. I see something sometimes like one line, like then I just like, oh, nope. Mm-hmm. And I remember your story every time I think that in my head, because you never know not only what it may lead to on that particular project, but what it could just lead to down the road 6 months from now, that just some way that you said something or the right thing happens. And like, I remember how Jeremy did, or Jason did that thing. So I think that's great.
I did the same thing. Happened the Passion Live. I was back home in Meridian just on a like quick trip, and I tried to take my camera. Like if I'm going to be gone for a long period of time, weeks, I'll take a taping setup just so I have something there in the event. But as we all know, like when you prep for something, it never happens. Right. Yeah. Anyway, so. I got back home, and Angie's like, "Hey, there's this thing taping. Like, you just want to send something in?" I was like, "I mean, all I really got is my cell phone, but yeah, I'll send something in. Book it off my cell phone."
Yeah.
Like, okay, that's awesome. But like I said, all I did was I drove up to the restaurant that I used to work at, talked to one of my friends. We went in the back corridor of the hallway, threw my cell phone up, taped it, and get a job off a cell phone, where people would just as much say, it's too much trouble. I'm just not even going to do it. And
speaking of which, Angie just commented, y'all must have a great agent. Yes, we do. Action talent.
Great agent.
Very thankful.
We love her
you.
So much.
So with The Passion, you worked for how many days on that? And what role did you have on The Passion? The Passion was the Tyler Perry project that was a live, was it a kind of a retelling of the...
Yeah, no, it was a telling of Jesus' story leading up to... that last night, and so we taped some things here in the city that were then used during the live performance for for the monitors on the back screen. But I mean, I got to meet Seal, Trisha Yearwood, Chris Daughtry. Like, it was just a super cool experience to be a part of, and especially because we were kind of new living down in this area. It really just kind of let me know like what kind of city I did move into. I was like, love this place.
Right.
Love it.
Speaking of which, your lovely fiance just joined the
girl
show.
Person.
Girl person, as they say. If you have any questions for Jeremy, he's a fantastic actor, but he also does a lot of other things in the film industry. If you're thinking about getting into that particular industry, or just have general questions about breaking into some form of the entertainment industry, comment them, and I'll make sure I ask him. But speaking of your girl person, as you put it, and Chris Daughtry on that show, I think you have one of the most epic, and we don't have to spend a lot of time on this, but one of the most epic proposals I've ever seen. So can you tell that story briefly, and then I'll get into some more meat and potatoes here?
Yeah, she's going to kill me when I get home. No, it's like you said, so if you really want to like backtrack it, I could have said no to that audition. I would have never booked The Passion, would have never met Chris. That one little thing lines all this up.
So on The Passion, you became friends with Chris Daughtry,
yeah,
the
super
singer.
nice guy. Super nice guy. He was playing Judas, and we just kept in touch. And a couple of months down the road, I found out that he was playing in Biloxi at the casino over there. And I was just like, hey, man, you mind helping me propose? And he was absolutely all for it. He's like, absolutely, we're going to do this. And so she had no idea. We went with a couple of friends of ours, and I acted like I had a lot to drink, but I really didn't. And so I kind of like moseyed up back on stage and blew through one of his songs, and I walk out on stage. And the whole thing, I think you can see it on YouTube, but he played along real well. He's a good sport about it. And so popped the question. Now we're getting married like less than a month.
So
April
do it
1st.
on stage. Chris Daughtry's playing. You stumble out like you're a crazy man, and the audience doesn't know what's going on.
Well, yeah, they went crazy. They didn't know what was going on. And so back to when I first met her at that workshop, one of the icebreakers that we did was we all wrote a poem and then like performed it for the class. And so I had written a poem and started performing it. Now, a class full of actors, they're much more attentive than a stadium full of drunk Daughtry moms. Yeah. But so they're all screaming, and it was finally about halfway through when the tone of the poem started to take a change. That was when the women were like, oh my God, he's about to propose. He's going to propose, y'all. And poor little Ekin, she needed her cue.
Yeah. She
So I
was like, oh, me?
you need to go out there.
We love you.
Oh yeah, we do.
He loves
very
you
much, very much.
Yeah.
We love. It's okay. There's enough to get
I
around.
didn't want to get in a fight or anything on the show.
No.
But no, so we've talked about the highlights of the career, but now I want to get into some nitty gritty. We touched on it a little bit with people that want to get into the industry, but don't really know a way. And so then they typically just sit around and say, I can't do this, can't do that. But you found a way throughout the years to find ways to get into the industry that maybe weren't the clear, direct path, maybe working on crew or whatever. Can you talk a little bit about the value of that?
Yeah, no, and it all started off, like I said, everybody wants to get in, and that's a given. Some people are fortunate that they get in right away and they have a long career. Then you have Morgan Freemans that don't hit it until they're in their mid-40s. So it's one of those things is that I always try to remember it's going to happen for me when it's supposed to happen. And it's that old saying that success is when hard work meets opportunity. So you can just kind of blow through life and have your talent and whatnot, and you'll get an opportunity and you'll swing the best you can. And if you hadn't prepped for everything, it's a whiff and it doesn't count. Or you can have your nose to the grindstone for 20 years and never get an opportunity. It's okay, you're still doing the work, but it's not your time yet. And so once I did get into it and I realized that there was this whole world outside of just being an actor, Randy King, he's a key grip DP in Jackson. I talked to him one day about just doing grip work to kind of not to stay out of the secular job, 9 to 5. And so I started doing grip work with him.
And for the honest, what is a grip work?
Grip work, when you go on stage, gripology is anything that would help a camera team, where it's the bounce boards. You have grip and electric. That's all of your lights, your dollies, your anything that's a physical unit on set, like C-stands, things like that. And so as a grip, you are a key component of a functional film set, because if grip team doesn't do their job, then camera can't do. Yeah, nothing gets moved. Camera can't do theirs, and so it really started to open up this world that I had once just viewed as strictly in front of the lens. And so now I've realized, there's all these other aspects. There's all these other opportunities. And so I've set PA'd, I've office PA'd, I've gripped, I've done electric work, I kind of did some transpo, I've done stunt work. Literally anywhere that I can get my foot in, I have a good work ethic. I'm knowledgeable enough in the career. I put in hard work. People will allow you opportunities if you come in and you really want to learn. And this My Little Baby that I just came off of in Orlando, there was a kid there that it was his first PA gig ever, and he was my driver and he was taking me back and forth to set, and it was like a 30-minute ride from hotel to set every day. So literally I just rained knowledge, do this, do that, literally just take in everything you can, learn as much as you can on this job, because there was a lot of questions that he was communicating with the AD, and I could tell that he didn't know the questions that he needed to ask. And it was ask him this, ask him that. And so the things that you learn on that one little job, you'll then get your next PA job, and you'll be able to implement. And then that'll happen over here, and then that'll happen here. And then one day you're going to get to set, and one of the wardrobe girls is going to be gone, and they're going to say, hey, we could use a hand in wardrobe. And then you walk over into wardrobe, and you learn that. And you do the same thing there, and then you'll get this, and it just grows. And if you look at any of today's successful filmmaker, look at Ben Affleck, that guy is everywhere, and he started from the bottom. Mm-hmm. And it's just, I feel as though I timed that really, really well. No, I feel as though using, like you said, the opportunities to learn about the industry as an entirety, it makes you a more viable threat, because it is show business. Mm-hmm. It's not just about art and entertainment. There's a business side to it. And so for if you look on my IMDb, I'm trying to get a little bit of everything, because that tells people that I just want to work in this industry. I'm not a diva. I don't do just camera work.
It's
one of those things is that it makes you more real and
like people that focus on one thing, that's totally fine if that's your passion.
Right.
But if you're not getting where you want to get and it's not happening fast, like there are actors that have only ever acted and they just hit and hit and hit. They've had their downsides, but they also start having some success. But if you're complaining, if you're having trouble getting into that, whatever it is, whether it be in the entertainment industry or whatever, but if you're not getting where you need to go, then you're finding alternate paths to be in the same atmosphere, meet the same people that you'll probably work with as an actor one day, or as you said, there are times that you've gone on crew and an actor didn't show up, or they remembered you from the other project and know that you act as well, and so that has put you in the position that you really want to be in.
Exactly. Well, and especially like if you just look at it for the relationships and the connections that you get if you're a day player on set, you literally get your fitting Monday, you do your shot Tuesday, you travel out Wednesday. If you're a PA on set, you work for the whole 6 weeks or whatever the time is. And so it's like I could actually make a more lasting impression in this group of filmmakers by going and getting coffee and running Crafty than I could be in front of the camera for 2 hours.
Yeah, I totally agree. I did a short film that we're going to be doing some reshoots on, but I was PA the entire week. I only had 1 day of shooting, and mine was the last day. And nobody knew really. I mean, I didn't say, "Hey, I'm the actor here, guys. I can't get anything."
Don't be that guy.
So
and she's looking at me right now like you're that guy.
No, so all week long I'm running anything anybody needs, and then the last day they're like, "Wow," they had no idea. So I think it's powerful to help people in any way that you can. So that it's a big industry, but it's also a very small industry.
Small. It's so small, and you said that it's one of those when you first step in, and like you said, you think, oh my God, it's nothing now. Like it's almost a game that I play with myself when I go onto a new set. It's like, who am I going to know? And it's happened. Like just a random sound guy worked on this one project that there was no reason why he should be there. Nope, there they are. Yeah. And so that plays into another key part of this whole climbing this mountain as a career is that it's be nice to everyone, because that guy that was just a PA in this movie that you were a douche to, 16 years from now he's gonna be a studio head. You know what I'm saying? And you never know who is going to be where in their journey as you're making yours. And so it's just I feel like not to get like deep or anything, but in this business, we all are artists. We all have a story of some sort that we're wanting to tell, and typically speaking, like-minded individuals, we gel. And so sometimes you will get on set and you'll have that one person or so that they don't exactly fit in and click. Those aren't the people that you want to be around. You want to be around the like-minded people that everything is just perfect with. It just flows. There's no hiccups, because making a movie is stressful enough, let alone adding in any kind of like personal qualms.
Right.
Do we have like a...
Oh, no, that's
we
my
have a
private
message.
Email. No. Alec Purvis says, "Oh, hail Jeremy." I don't know if you know.
Alec. Hey, Alec.
So getting some good questions. If you have any final questions for Jeremy, we're going to wrap up in a little bit here. We're talking about just the film industry and getting into acting, and Jeremy has a lot of exciting credits, but I wanted to touch on, before we wrap up, your final credit. You mentioned it briefly, but the My Little Baby that you just worked on, that was an interesting experience for you. So can you tell a little bit about how that threw you for a curveball a little bit?
So to tie in everything we're talking, was working crew on a television show, and like 2 days left to go. Angie, super Angie, as she is in my phone, calls me up and says, "Hey, I just got the script from a director in Orlando. They're interested in you in playing this role of Mike. Like, read it. Let me know what you think. They would need you tomorrow." What? Tomorrow, like the day after today. Okay, so I read the script. Super cool little horror aspects to it, and it's like, I think I'd like to do this. Well, I'm working on this one job as a crew, and I don't want to leave them high and dry. So I find my replacement, get them done. Sweet, I'm going. Fly down to Orlando, and when I get there, all of the producers, the director, some of the PAs, they're all Italian. And I actually have a translator to communicate between my director and myself. And my translator, love him, Antonio, he learned English in London, so he had an English accent when he it was just
really bizarre.
It was one of those like, what is happening here?
Yeah, and like 2 days before, you didn't even know about the project.
I knew nothing. And so, yeah, so they fly me in. I landed in Orlando at like 12:30. Call was at 6, or pickup was at 6 a.m. And we shot 9 pages the first day. And it's super cool. You're just to get that whole experience where it's like these people. I didn't audition. They looked at my prior work. They looked at my reel. They said, "Oh, we like him. Let's fly him down." That in itself, that was a win. But then when you get there and you realize that there's this obstacle that you never imagined you would ever encounter. Like starting out, I never thought like one day I'm gonna be on set where I don't speak the same language as people, and we're gonna
as anybody.
Yeah, it's like, but it was.
And the script was in Italian. Yes.
Originally, the script was in Italian, and they translated it over, which still had a little bit of that's. I think I know what you're trying to say, but that's not how we would say that. Just so. It was that little degree of difficulty that made it a little bit more challenging, but at the same time a little bit more rewarding, because now, just off an opportunity, I'll be in a film that's in a foreign film festival. I never even thought, what? That's possible? How do you do it? So really, really cool story. Got to work with some great actors. And like I said, since these people are from a completely different culture, it shows also in the film, in the work, like, I can't really explain it. It's just the vibe of everything. It's very foreign to what I was familiar with, even though we shot it over here and all the actors are American. Most of them.
Got it. Cool. Well, we're going to wrap up, but do you have any final advice for people that want to get into the entertainment industry or acting specifically? So maybe they're starting out right now. Maybe they're even a little bit older in life. They had a prior career and now they want to shift. Or any final advice for somebody that just wants to hit the ground running?
If you want to get into solely acting, don't do it. Don't just run very far and fast. No. You have to love it. You really do. And I say that from the bottom of my heart. It is a love roller coaster. You will have these juicy highs where you're just happy as a clam, and then you will have some of the most down and depressing days because you're not getting auditions, or you're auditioning and you're not getting callbacks, or your buddy books this role. You have to love it. This is not a career of financial stability, of scheduling stability. Anybody that gets into this, that's spouse or family as a 9-to-5 person, it's stressful on that relationship because those are some of the things that we do. Sherry, she's an actress, so we have this schedule times 2. Right. It's not just me booking stuff; it's her also. And so there's a lot of. Whenever people ask me like, "Ooh, how do I do this?" I always like to give them a real answer. I don't ever want to be like, "Oh, it's fun," and you can. It's hard work. You never know what you're going to have to do, when you're going to have to do it, or where you're going to have to do it. And if you like uncertainties with maybe no reward, absolutely. But just as, like I said, just as nonlinear as your happiness in this career is, so are the opportunities and the way that you have to tackle them. Like just making the right person a good cup of coffee on set could be the difference between an Oscar and not. It's crazy, but it's true.
So many things that happen along the way, little things that you felt had no bearing on anything, show up years later that play a major role in something.
And it's interesting you said that. So we just had the Oscars. We just watched the Oscars. Most of those guys and women got 30 seconds to thank everybody that helped them get that Oscar. It's impossible because of all of the little instances that have happened just in my career, where I'm at. I know people that just one small conversation has given me motivation, and that I've thought of this moment when I'm presented with a similar obstacle. So it's like for them to just knock it down to a list of producers, their co-stars, there's mom, there's dad, God, this and this and that. Right. It's not enough. It's everything that happens.
I agree. Awesome. Well, thank you, Jeremy, so much for coming on the show. I really appreciate it. And if you have any other questions, you can comment them below. Maybe Jeremy will come in later and respond to your questions. But other than that, see you on the next show. I really appreciate you watching. This will be on iTunes and Stitcher and YouTube and just about any other place you want to find it in the very near future. And I'll see you on the next show. Thank you.